don't think Trump's going to win anyway, so I'm not ultra concerned about if he wins. But that's where he's getting his money. I just wanted to point that out. Now, the whole thing is now that he's a convicted felon, he's kind of screwed. Even before, I didn't think he was going to win. Because you got to remember, Biden beat him by almost 9 million votes in 2020. And since 2018, during that midterm race, Trump and the Republicans haven't done well in any election since then, in the last 6 years. They've gotten smoked in every election. Right? So things are not a good trend going. So Trump has to make up all those votes. He's got to get all of his base and the independents, and he's got to make up, millions of votes. Now, granted, this is still going to come down to probably 500,000 votes in 4 or 5 states, but he's got to make up a lot of ground. And now that he's a convicted felon, what do you think Biden and everybody else is going to be saying all through the election? Convicted felon Trump, adjudicated rapist Trump, 2-time impeached Trump.
Well, I mean, here's a fun question. Is he going to be able to cast a vote for himself?
Yeah, technically in Florida he can. Because the way they work it in Florida is if you're a felon, you can't vote, but you can get an exception if you're a felon in a different state. So they're going to give him the exception to vote. But here's the thing, is there's a lot of countries that if you're a felon in the United States or another country, you can't go to those countries. So like Canada, a lot of countries in Europe, they're going to have to waive that because he's a felon. He's not allowed in their country. They're going to have to find some exception to their laws. If Trump goes there. But anyway, so the problem is now how does the right-wing machine justify all this shit? Well, Fox News lost their collective minds. Trying to spin this in a positive way.
Hold on. My second favorite emoji.
You need 2 hands for this one. It's gonna get good. So I got this couple little clips from the Majority Report, but they're trying to spin it as, well, this is horrible and it's wrong and it's unfair and we need to go to war with the Democrats or some shit. But it's just craziness, and we're gonna watch a couple clips on this.
You could even say Alvin Bragg only brought this because he has Democratic leanings and his constituency wanted this, but you can't, both sides had the ability to pick the jury. The thing that you cannot deny is that there aren't other cases happening. For example, look at this.
What about the evidence itself, Teresa? Do you think it was fair? Do you think the fact that they took these misdemeanors, these dead misdemeanors, and they electrified them back to life and then strapped them to 3 separate felonies without actually indicting him on those felonies?
Pause it first.
I gotta say, that's such bullshit. Because they keep doing that on Fox. There was no real crime. There was no crime. Okay, I want to get this clear for this. Okay, Biden was involved and this was all manipulated bullshit. Bullshit. It's a state case. Biden can't even pardon him. The only person who can pardon him is the governor of New York, who's definitely not going to do that. Right? On top of that fact, this is handled in the county, in Manhattan, in that county. And the DA there gets to decide whether or not to bring the case. But if he decides to bring the case, what does he have to do? First, he has to build the case, then he has to go to what's called a grand jury. And I think in New York, the grand juries are 12 people. So he gets to go to the grand jury, present the case, his evidence to them, to say, hey, can I even indict this guy to try him? The grand jury doesn't decide guilt or innocence, just whether or not the case can go forward. So he's got to convince 12 people, and he did. 12 of Trump's peers, 12 ordinary citizens, just like Trump, said, yeah, you can indict him. So then they indicted him. But Trump's got a right to trial, and he's got a right to a jury trial, and he got a jury trial. And the jury was selected from 12 ordinary citizens, and Trump's lawyers and the prosecution got to decide who these people were and argue about it. The lawyers got to pick him. So he got some say in who the jury was. And they got the jury, and those 12 people said, yeah, convict him on all 34 counts. All 12 of them said that. And that's the only way you can get convicted. All that has to happen first. That's why DAs rarely bring charges unless they're going to get a conviction. That's why I was convinced he was going to get nailed. But that's why, I mean, so what she's saying, this whole, oh, well, it was a misdemeanor it was a dead misdemeanor. No, it was a real crime. He falsified business records to cover up a campaign fraud. Now, the campaign fraud they didn't try, because that probably is a federal crime and all that. It doesn't really matter. What matters is he covered up the business records to do it. So, if Lacey pays me $1 million to go kill somebody, whether I killed him or not is irrelevant. Lacey paid me the $1 million, right? So we're in conspiracy together. And then Lacey hides the fact that she paid me $1 million by saying, oh, I just hired Duncan as my financial planner. This is exactly what happened to Cohen and Lacey B. Trump in this scenario. The crime is that she tried to cover it up. The crime. That's the crime. That's what makes it a felony. And this one is so common. They were talking about since 2015 or 16, the last 10 years. The Manhattan has already convicted like over 9,000 people of this same crime in 10 years. This is a really common instance where people try to falsify their records to cover up illegal shit. Because heaven forbid, right? So she's just full of shit right there. I mean, or not her, the main guy. It just kills me. Because...
So, I just want to throw this out there. You know how you teach little kids that they'll get into less trouble if they can just own up to what they did?
Right.
Kind of feel like they might have skipped that lesson on him.
Well, yeah. Trump is an example of what happens when your parents give you money instead of love. It's true. His father fucking hated him. Let's jump back in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a fair trial, and if the whole double standard is what's getting me so mad, it's just they're pounding on him and they're beating him down and cutting him down, and I don't understand why Hunter Biden gets away with these things, Hillary Clinton. It just gets me so angry.
Okay. I'm going to actually let Sam cover this. I think he does cover this.
I'm so excited to go vote for him in November.
Okay, you'll notice that was at 12:40 p.m. Pacific time, so 3:40 p.m. Eastern time, and exactly at that moment, one of 12 jurors was being seated in the Hunter Biden felonious trial, and don't take my word for it. Take Fox News' word for it later that night, that the only reason why, or I should say later that afternoon, the only reason why Hunter Biden was on trial was because of his last name. Here is Trey Gowdy and his haircut. Explain.
His new haircut. He's got the grease back.
It's a work in progress.
It's always a work in progress with him.
Your thought is about the difference between Trump trying to get a fair trial in New York City and Biden's trying to get a fair trial in Delaware.
Well, Dana, I have this really bad habit, although I'm working on it. I try to be fair. I know there's a very small constituency for that. I think if it had been Donald Jones or Donald Trump or Donald Thomas, we would not have been in New York for the past several weeks. I think if this were Hunter Jones or Hunter Smith, you and I would be talking about something else this morning. So we got to get beyond treating people differently based on their political status or what their last name is. I did gun prosecutions for 6 years. I went after convicted felons. I went after people who were fugitives from justice. I went after lots of different people who were prohibited from possessing a firearm. But I'll bet you there weren't 10 cases prosecuted nationwide of addicts or unlawful drug users who possess firearms or allowed on.
And that's where I want to hit that point. So while they're bitching on Fox News about this is unfair, why are they going after Biden's son? Well, while she's saying that Biden's son is in trial for unlawfully possessing a weapon, and the jury was being seated while she said that, she was, oh, well, how come we're not prosecuting Biden's son? He's being prosecuted as you're talking. You freaking idiot. Man. So stupid. That's what they're doing on Fox. Now, meanwhile, here's the difference. And this is where Trey Gowdy, who just the weird guy with the hair, was just talking. Here's where he's full of shit.
I'm so sorry. I was so distracted by thinking he kind of looked like a cone head.
He's
I was
odd.
like,
The little nose and everything.
and like these, like the sort of kind of weird robot guys that were on the old Coca-Cola commercials. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know. He's built for aerodynamics, Lacey.
I mean, you know what? That might be some sort of modification that we all go through.
You could chuck him like a spear and he'll just keep flying. Anyway, so Trey Gowdy, sorry to make fun of how he looks, but here's where he's full of shit on the comparison. Now, it is true that part of this is being brought against Hunter Biden because he's the president's son. And I'm sorry, as a kid who played on a team that a baseball team his father coached in Little League, you get more shit when your father's the coach. When your dad's president, you get more scrutiny. It sucks, it's not fair, but that's how it goes. Now, the gun charge, what it was is he bought a gun, and on the form he filled out that he wasn't a drug addict while he was a drug addict. And he was on drugs, right? So he lied on the form, and then 11 days later he returned the gun. When he thought better of it. Right, or sobered up, or whatever it was. So he didn't commit the crime, right? But Gowdy's pointing out, I'll bet you there haven't been 10 of those tried in the United States in, God, forever. Nobody ever gets convicted of this. It's a rare that this ever goes to court. He gave the gun back. Usually they just ignore it and let it go. And part of that's because Republicans have pushed for lesser lesser gun laws for decades. Right? And now they're all hot.
That's only if a Republican has the gun.
Right. If a Democrat has the gun, or the president's son that they don't like has the gun. Yeah, so that's what this is. So, yeah, I mean, Hunter Biden's probably going to end up doing some time for this. For basically lying on a form, and I want to get this straight. He lied on a form to acquire a gun, and he's probably going to do time. Trump lied 34 times to cover up a crime. And that's not a legit case. But the Hunter Biden one, the comparison is almost ridiculous. Now, if you're asking me, do I think it's fair or not fair? Honestly, I think Hunter Biden got screwed a little bit. But the bottom line is, he still committed the crime, man. He gets found guilty. He has to do whatever the punishment is. Their idea is, well, yeah, but if it's Trump, no, that's fine. I'm okay with it. Let him go. And Trump did it 34 times. I mean, that's the thing that's so fucked up. You can't. The comparison is such a fucked up thing, because in one case, he's making the point of, well, the Hunter Biden thing is so uncommon. It's stupid that he's being tried. That it's so uncommon that we try anybody for it. It's usually a slap on the wrist. We just let him go. The Trump thing is so common that over 9,000 people have been convicted of the same crime in New York in the last 10 years. So you can't sit there and go, well, it's the same. It's uncommon that he'd get convicted, but it's very common he'd get convicted. So it's the same. No, it's not. That's where he's trying to make this weird false comparison. It's similar in the sense they both lied on documents. Right? He did it to illegally acquire a gun. Trump did it to illegally influence the election. And the thing about it is, nobody is sitting there going, well, we need to let Hunter Biden go. No, he's got a fair trial. The jury can decide. Same as Trump. It's how the fucking court system has worked in this country since the founding. They get jury trials, and that's how it goes. The jury can decide, or they can plea out whatever they want to do. So I don't know. I mean, they're so trying hard to justify this, but they've got nothing. It's just so pathetic. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to throw on that, but
No, I mean, I am with you. I mean, listen, if Hunter Biden did the crime, then he's got to go through the trial like everybody else. I do agree he's getting screwed a little because it's sort of like the let's make an example of him sort of thing kind of in play.
Right.
And I do kind of hate that. Although, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like,
well, my attitude is, look, you're the president's son. You're the president. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's just how it goes. You're held to a higher standard,
like,
and that's unfortunate. But
if
that's
you're
what
the
it is.
teacher's kid, if you're the teacher's kid, you can't skip class and you got to turn in your homework.
Yeah,
you know,
no
like
shit. Yeah.
you're just sort of stuck with it. You know.
Yep. Yep. When your dad's the coach of the baseball team, you get yelled at the most. You're doing the most push-ups and the most laps. That's just how it goes, because you have to set the example. So, anyways, that's how they're trying to justify it, and part of it is because they're